In this lesson, I'll show you 5 mistakes that I hear most self-taught guitar soloists make. My name's Daniel Seraph, and I've coached guitarists in over 25,000 guitar lessons since 2007. So here are 5 of the most common mistakes I hear in guitarists. Mistake number 1. Alright, so clearly there are a lot of problems going on there. Overarching problem is that you just start playing without listening first. So things that you need to think about before starting to play are tone. Notice that I didn't check in on what my tone was sounding like. I just have it really super rolled off, not very good sounding. So tone, EQ, and then touch. So that guitar sound, it just doesn't even fit the mix. The other thing that happened was, you need to determine what gear to start in, and that requires you to listen to what's going on in the track or the band first. So if you're playing as like a sports car and you want all 6 speeds, if you immediately jump into gear, the 3rd gear or the 4th gear, you're going to stall out completely and have just nowhere to go. And that was demonstrated very clearly. I just jumped right in with a bunch of barrage of notes. So don't start with a mindless barrage of notes unless it's really like an intense song or like a shorter solo. Not all solos are going to be like a marathon. Some are, and some are more like a 100-meter dash. But part of building a solo is determining like what register of the guitar to start in. Meaning, do you want to start in that kind of middle register or do you want to start low? Now this particular track is like an A dominant chord. It's in A mixolydian if you like the modes, or you could just play A major pentatonic on it. So you really could play, in box 1. I wouldn't spend a lot of time on the fatter strings because it's going to sound too tubby, especially if my tone's not dialed in. I really like the idea of kind of starting in the middle of the neck, so kind of like right here. Maybe that's box 2 of the pentatonic. But that gives us kind of some register to work into. So if you're in the middle, you can then work your way to peak into the higher notes later and build up here. Let's look at mistake number 2. So mistake number 2 is very clearly just playing scales as if they are musical by themselves. Up and down scale motifs, scale patterns, scales and scale knowledge, it's all great, but in and of itself doesn't really actually make any music. You have to do creative things with the scales. So my recommendation is to try and add in as many slides, hammer-ons, pull-offs, bends, and vibrato as tastefully possible. So these really give the scales a unique flavor and make them sound interesting. And you can really work on this in the practice room by targeting each one of these kind of scale skills individually for just a few moments of your practice. Kind of like this. So I'm gonna do slides only. I might spend 1 to 2 minutes on this in my practice. And of course, I'm using the diagonal pentatonic because that's absolutely my favorite way to play. You can slide from a half step below any of the scale notes. You can really get into some of those kind of Derek Trucks-like moments. Okay, what about hammers? What about pull-offs? harder than hammers. Most people are a bit more challenged by those. How about some bends? I'm playing A major pentatonic. That means if I bend the 2, that gives me kind of that really nice bluesy sound. Also the 6 up to the flat 7. And then finally, vibrato. This also will lead us to massive mistake number 3, and that is not being aware of the rhythm. No connection to the rhythm of lead guitar. When you mention rhythm to guitar players, they often think you're talking about chords or, rhythm guitar. But a little known fact is rhythm is happening at all times in all parts of the band. Rhythm is essentially when and how long notes are happening. So this awareness of rhythm brings a much more musical depth to the statements that you're playing, and it allows you to sit more into the groove of the band and sound really like a member of the band rather than someone who is just kind of like wanking over top everyone. I know I'm playing well when the drummer is grinning at me. And this gives the band a whole cohesive sound rather than a bunch of non-locking individual parts. A lot of people will tell you that you need to practice a bunch to a metronome in order to improve your rhythm. Honestly, for most intermediate guitarists, the metronome is too boring and doesn't fill in the rhythmic quality of what a band is going to do. I recommend instead that you practice playing along with real drummers, and nowadays you can jam with tons of excellent ones online. You can also choose specific backing tracks, but instead of noodling, make sure you're working on specific rhythmic values. My challenge is for you to see if you can improvise using only quarter notes. Let's try it. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm just following that beat, the pulse. And of course I'm using slides and hammer-ons and things like that. What about eighth notes? That's gonna be 1 and 2 and 3. Or triplets, 3, 4. Or 16ths, 3, 4. Now, when you do it that much, it kind of sounds like an exercise, but if you target in the practice room and really focus on each of those rhythms, it's really gonna help. So you just do this for a few minutes in your practice, and you will become much better and much more connected to the groove. Now make sure to stick around for the 5th mistake because I hear it in almost every guitar student that I coach. And it's something that you can change instantly in order to massively improve your guitar solos. Just wanted to take a moment to share with you the sponsor of this video. My flagship course, The Diagonal Pentatonic Method. This is a full course with over 100 interactive tabs and backing tracks and play-alongs that you can use to free yourself from the pentatonic boxes and learn to really connect your scales across the entire guitar neck. Make sure to click the link below to check out the Diagonal Pentatonic Method, and I'll see you in those lessons. Mistake number 4. So obviously I am exaggerating it, but jumping around the fretboard too much. In order to create statements or tell a story on the instrument and build a solo that actually says something, you need to use your guitar neck and the positions in which you play, almost like chapters in a book. So I see a lot of guitarists just jump randomly between positions, maybe play low, move up high, play low again. Instead, I really like to build from a smaller part of the scale and start, adding notes piece by piece or note by note. This will really allow the story of your guitar solo to unfold. So sometimes you might do this, less for shorter solos, and sometimes you might do it more for having those long jams. Kind of like this. So I'm almost building as I'm expanding and adding notes. But having this awareness and this tool at your fingertips will allow you to say a bit more in your solo and not sound so random. Which brings up the next and maybe most important point of all. Mistake number 5. Imagine that you walked into a coffee shop in the morning. You grabbed a nice little coffee and sat down at the counter, ready to read kind of your favorite magazine. And as you sit down, you say to your next door neighbor over here, "How's it going?" And suddenly they burst off into the craziest download you've ever heard. "Oh, I'm okay today, but you should have seen me yesterday. Really crazy day. Do you like cheese? I'm a big fan. I mean, it's a coffee shop, but I wish they had cheese. Have you ever ridden a unicycle? I like clowns, but not the scary kind. I think tomorrow is Tuesday, but I can't even tell what today is. Have you seen my dog? I'd really like a parrot to talk to. I'm ready for this election to be over with. Were dinosaurs even real?" This is how many guitarists play the guitar. They don't use any repetition or connectivity whatsoever, and barely any space. It's like having a crazy conversation with a total stranger that you just can't process whatsoever. As Miles Davis said, space is equally as important as the notes that you play. When you play an idea, try to leave some room so that the listener can process what you play. Just like a conversation. Let's check it out. Space. So then once you decide to play again, try and play something that sounds reminiscent or related to what you just played, and that will kind of connect those ideas. So most guitarists just abandon every idea, one after another. And, not using repetition or space, it's really kind of like a squirrel or like that crazy conversation that I just demonstrated. Now that you have a better idea on how to improve your solos and rid yourself of newbie soloing mistakes, make sure to watch this video next to immediately improve your phrasing on the guitar.